Hi folks, and welcome back to The Plot. Today I thought I'd take a little bit of time, slow down and give you a proper in-depth chili pepper tour. If you're new to the channel, I grow chili peppers on the south coast of the UK. I grow them undercover on my allotment plot. I have one full-sized allotment. I have two greenhouses there, both around 8 by 6, and over there, we'll look in there later, I've got a polytunnel in the background there, a 10 by 20 foot. Now I've done a chili pepper growing guide this year as well, so hopefully you've seen that, but if not, it's linked in the description. So if you've got any questions about what I've been doing, do ask them in the comments, but if you want to know in detail, I'm sure they will be in that video below, where I've been teaching everyone the best way to kind of grow chili peppers in the UK to get started, because it can be a little bit of a tricky climate. And this year we have had exceptionally dull weather. Cool temperatures, lots of grey skies, and it's been pretty challenging, but I have to say I am very, very proud of my growing year so far. There's a fantastic channel called Chili Chump that I will also link in the description. He's just done a growing tour and he is having probably the worst season he's ever had. Despite 20 years of experience, it's been a very challenging time. So let's go into the greenhouse. I love chili peppers, just my favourite thing to grow. Now, one thing about me that you'll know if you've been watching the channel for a long time is that I'm a pretty neglectful guy, actually. I am not a fantastically talented grower and I am not particularly attentive. I don't come to the allotment as often as I should. I don't stay on top of things as well as I should. And thankfully, chili peppers generally can deal with a little bit of neglect and a little bit of drought. Up here on my greenhouse staging, I've got 5 plants actually, if you include this one, squeezed in to this little area. That's another thing about me, too many plants planted too close together. But this one, really, really cool. This is a scallywag pepper, and this is actually a trial pepper from Thompson & Morgan, a new variety, new to the market, that isn't available for release yet. But a very interesting pubescens. They've got these lovely, weird, kind of hairy leaves. They grow very kind of outward, you know, they don't grow up and tall. And we're just starting to get a few pods on here. These are in just relatively small 2.5 litre pots. This one at the back actually is full of pods, loads of green pods on there. Very interested to see how they taste. This has had lovely purple flowers throughout the season. Really, really cool. Up here we've got the pepper dew, and behind that the beaver dam, and you can see both of these very thirsty. Very thirsty, not good, not good. Pepper dew just starting now to get a few pods, and these ones both look really good size, and the beaver dam quite a few pods, looking very healthy. Now I mostly want to focus on the actual plants this update. I might do another chili pepper growing guide, and in that I will talk about how these things are a little bit behind and there's probably a bit too much fruit on them. But for now, if you're wondering, should there be that much fruit on my peppers, or you know, has JB got too much fruit on his peppers? I would say yes. Ideally I would want just plants, yeah, and not too much flowering, but they're looking really good, so I'm not going to complain too much. It's looking a little bit chaotic on the floor in here, and generally growing on the floor isn't actually the best idea, but I think I might just quickly move a bit of this around so we can have a proper look. That's a little bit easier. A little bit of a path in here. I wonder if I'll leave them like this. I might do, you know, but in here we have the quad grow. So 4 pots which are sat on top of reservoirs. If you're interested in these, I've done a whole video on setting them up. But I must say, 4 very, very healthy looking pepper plants. And I say pepper plants because these aren't all chilies. This first one is the Antep Aki Dolma, and my goodness, I had not quite realised just how bushy this thing is. Can you see in there? There's just so much internal growth, and actually that might start to become a bit of an issue because these get to be pretty good size and they're going to struggle to grow in the middle there. You can see this one is, oh, is that ready for harvest? Look at that. It's really, really nice growing large peppers. First time I've ever really done it. This year I wanted to do a few more sweet peppers and I found it really, really satisfying. The main thing about them is they do require a bit more water than chili peppers, so you do have to stay on top of things. Now just next to the Antep we've got this, a California Wonder. Now this is a traditional sweet pepper, a traditional sweet bell. Absolutely gigantic flowers. Really, really quite novel to see when you're so used to growing chili peppers with their delicate small flowers. And this is the same, once again, incredibly bushy. Healthy, nice broad leaves though. And we've got one down here, but is it okay? Well, it's miniature, but it is okay. Throughout today's video, we'll see a little bit of sun scorch and what might be blossom end rot, but that looks healthy enough to me. In contrast to the big broad leaves of the mild peppers, look at this tiny little fine-leaved plant. Lovely, delicate white flowers on here, and this, just the other day, was in full bloom. I've never seen so many flowers on a chili plant. And let's just untangle this a little bit. This one is the Ring of Fire, a really nice early flowering, early fruiting cayenne. And I took about 10 peppers off here the other day. There's a few little red ones at the back. I didn't actually mean to harvest that one, it just popped off. But one of my favorite chilies, this one. Fantastic for sauce, just that cayenne flavor profile with about twice the heat. And although I'm more of a grower for enjoying the plants, and I do make some hot sauces, I'm not that much of a chili head. I don't like that much spice, and this I feel like is just a really nice medium. If I bite into this now, let's do it. Let's see what happens. That is hotter than I remember. That is a hot example of a Ring of Fire, or maybe last year I grew some very mild ones, but so sweet, so sweet and so tasty. I'm not going to eat too much more of this because they get hotter as you get more towards the stem. And that was enough. I want to be able to continue the video, but a delicious, delicious pepper. Next at the Ring of Fire, we have this, the mild Korean. This was a really good grower for me last year, but it did kind of peter out quite early. But so far, so good. Really nice and healthy. It is branching out quite a lot, and I don't normally trim my peppers, but this, you know, when you're growing in a greenhouse like this, I do think this year I'll be trimming a little bit more and trying to encourage them to grow up and use that vertical space rather than going out and getting tangled in everything. Quite a few pods on here, actually. Maybe, like I say, a few more than I'd like to see, but also lots of flowers. So very good. Again, a really healthy plant. Everything in the quad grow looking really, really nice this year so far. I've got a little basil plant in the front there. Hopefully that'll take off. And I don't think I've put any fertilizer in here yet. It's time to start feeding though, for sure. Just in the corner here, we have a really nice, healthy looking beaver dam. Really nice dark leaves on this. And this one, a little while ago, needed a lot of supporting because you can see it gets some nice big peppers, and the stem was kind of all getting coiled up, and it is a little bit thirsty, that one, but some nice big peppers on there. That one's interesting, purple. And then around on the floor, we've got more Korean. This is another Korean one. So this one, you can see I've trained vertically much more. Once again, some lovely pods just in a 10-litre pot, but looking really, really good. It will be interesting to see how this compares to the quad grow as the season goes on. And then I've got a couple of slightly smaller ones. This is another pepper dew, and this is a bleeding jigsaw. The pepper dew looking really good. Very similar to the pepper dew up there, but just going to be a bit smaller, but once again already getting a few pods, looking healthy enough. This bleeding jigsaw though, now this is exciting. It has looked a little bit poorly, a little bit kind of yellow, a little bit pallid throughout the season, but you can see it's got some pretty scary looking chili peppers on here now, and this is because it stayed in a small pot for too long. But this one looks pretty ripe to me. Best way to pick is just to kind of go against the stem, and it should come off really easily if it's ripe. They want a little bit longer on there, so I can spare myself from tasting that one for a little while as well. Given the challenging growing year, this is stonking. These are some really, really good looking peppers, especially that Korean at the back there. Looks really, really good. And I'm over the moon. I really am. There's not too many in this greenhouse. This is more for tomatoes and some cucumbers. But this one, I have done a little bit of an experiment. And right at the back here, in the ground, I have placed a Thunder Mountain Longhorn. And I don't normally grow peppers in the ground. In fact, this is the first year I've ever done it. And it really sulked. It did not like going in the ground. It was quite late, so the ground had had plenty of time to warm up, but it just sulked. It looked really sad, but now it's looking much healthier. There's quite a lot of chilies on here because it was pot bound, but it'll be really interesting to see how this progresses throughout the season. It is, again, one that is trying to grow outwards rather than upwards, so I might need to do a little bit of training on that one. One thing I don't do is grow outside on the allotment, and There are some peppers that you can do outside, but I have just found that I always wanted to get the best season, and so I invested very early in greenhouses and the polytunnel that we're about to go into. So if you grow outside, let me know how your season's going. I think, once again, probably been quite a struggle. We've had a lot of wet weather. It's just much harder to control the growing conditions of peppers and chilies outside. The polytunnel. This is some very good chili pepper growth. In the foreground, incredible. These are chili peppers in Autopots, and they are just romping away now. These things, it's like being on steroids. I tried it for the first time last year, Autopots, and they blew me away. I was expecting some decent results. Used to growing in quad grows, which make sure that there's a lot of water available for the peppers, and they make it really easy to fertilize, but this is just like next level. Look at the size of these. I did, unfortunately, have my first label mishap with the chilies this year, and it was on these Autopot peppers, and right at the front here I've got two of the same variety, which was a bit of a mistake. I was meant to do a lot of testing to all of those quad grow varieties. I wanted to do a direct trial with in here. We've still got 3 of the 4 varieties, so it's not too bad, but these 2 at the front are champions, and arguably one of my favourite chili peppers I've ever grown. It's quite hard to see which one's which. These are quite close together, but this is in full fruiting now. Loads and loads of green pods, and we've got one, just a little red one, come to fruition. That one might be ripe. I originally thought this one behind it was a Sugar Rush Long Peach, which is another Baccatum. They have quite distinctive flowers and fruits, and actually this one does look a little bit different. I thought it was another champion, and I could be wrong. That is a much longer pod, which is why I thought it was a Sugar Rush, but maybe it's just a weird looking champion, or maybe it's an accidental cross, because I did save a lot of my own champion seeds, but you can see that thing is just rocketing away. It grows like a champion. It tastes around, I would say, jalapeno heat, maybe a little bit milder, and so juicy sweet. Incredible pepper. So I'm very, very happy to have 2 of these in the Autopots, which are gonna just get stupidly large. They're gonna get to a size where they start taking over. I'm probably gonna have to cut them back along the path. Behind those we have a Chinense variety. One of the first Chinense, other than the bleeding jigsaw, that we've seen in today's video, and this thing is growing at a rate of knots actually. I hadn't noticed until I'm getting in here now. This thing has grown maybe like doubled in size over the last 2 weeks since it went into the Autopots. I'll put a little date on screen of when these things were sown, when they went into, you know, their different size pots. I might have done that a little bit earlier, but this thing looking fantastic, and this really what I want to see, just leaves. There's no fruit on here yet. And this is the traditional red habanero, a really good grower, full of flowers just starting now, but just looking like, oh, such a healthy plant, really doing its thing, and I'm sure soon enough it'll be pushing against that polytunnel. Next to that one we've got the Antep Acidulma, another couple on here nearly ready. Oh, that one is just so close. That one is really, really close, and there's another one under there. Antep Acidulma, I'm so glad I've grown it. I've wanted to grow it for years, the first time I've tried, and you can see, I would say at the moment it's looking pretty comparable to the quad grow plant, but I think it will overtake it for sure. Down here we've got the California Wonder, the bell pepper. It's looking a little bit funky. You can see there's a lot of weight on this stem which has come down, which is why I've strung it up. There's actually a bespoke string just holding that up because there's a couple of big peppers right under there threatening to snap the branch. So lots of supporting required on these. But that is looking like a pretty healthy plant, but maybe a little bit smaller than the one in the quad grow, or maybe it just looks that way because of the way that it's grown. Then in the foreground here we've got another ring of fire. So very similar to the quad grow plants, all looking very healthy. This is really bushy. Just everywhere you look, new leaves, new stems, and this thing I think is going to get pretty large. Now moving on from the Autopots, what you would normally expect to see is already a dramatic difference, and actually this lot looking really good. And that's because it took me a little bit longer than usual to pot on everything into the Autopots. It just took me a little bit longer, and I used Autopot dividers this year. So in each of these little pots, I turned it into basically 4 pots with little dividers. So you can actually fit 4 plants in here. And so they were growing pretty nice, but they did fill out those and get a little bit pot bound. Whereas the ones over here that are in a mixture of 10 litre, 7.5 litre and 5 litre pots, they got potted on a little bit sooner, and actually quite a lot earlier. There is an issue in here. Basically what's happened is this here is a chilli grow, similar to a quad grow but mini, so another self-watering system that I'm trialing this year. And originally that was kind of shifted over and all of these were shifted over a little bit as well, but I just took a big delivery of well-rotted manure and had to bring this all forward a little bit. So the idea was that I'd be able to get in here, have 6 pots of chilli, then get in here and have 6 more pots of chilli, and then I could get in here. So in theory I'll be able to get in either side, but you can see there's a trough of strawberries there. There's a lot of stuff in the way, so I've crammed a little bit too much in, but they look healthy, don't they? They're not complaining for now. So I will get round to making a little bit more space. I just love it. Let's look at these chilli grows first, because for a really long time, and hopefully I've got a little clip, these plants looked really unhealthy. The chilli grow, look at the colour of these. All 3 plants in the chilli grow have got these weird, really anemic leaves. They're not looking healthy at all. Really, really unhealthy. And they were completely yellow. They were not the right colour. They were fruiting way too early, but they've turned a corner. And it's because I've fed them. Okay, so they just clearly did not have the right soil conditions or the right things going on in the potting soil that I used. Now the chilli grows, these are very similar, a 6.5 litre pot and a much smaller reservoir than the quad grows, but they're much cheaper, they're much more affordable. So I'll put some links to quad grows and chilli grows and Autopots as well. There's an Autopot discount and I can't recommend them highly enough. I can't wait to do Autopot review at the end of the season and just, you know, a review of the growing season, I mean, and just show you how big these get, because it's going to be mammoth. First time growing in the chilli grows though, and I thought it would be really interesting to compare them with the quad grows. I find that the quad grows are perfectly fine for chilies, but I do start my chilies a lot earlier than most. Because I start them in January and I keep them indoors until May, they have a really long growing season. I try and give them the longest growing season possible. But if you're starting much later, maybe in April, maybe you only have an unheated greenhouse, then your plants are going to be really small until everything starts to warm up in June. And if you've got a slower start to your season, then it's probably better to use smaller pots. So that's why this kind of chilli grow, which is marketed at chilies, kind of makes sense. But if, like me, you're really trying to get the most chilies you can, you're starting early, you've got heat, you've got artificial grow lights, then you can probably afford to skip the chilli grow and go into a quad grow or an Autopot. Autopots come in multiple sizes as well. These are in 15 litres, I think, maybe 12 litres, but they do have a smaller kind of 8 litre, 7 litre size as well. So continuing the theme of testing, we've got a California Wonder in here, which is looking okay. One nice healthy pod coming on. What is this? We've got some mystery damage. That looks like a little caterpillar cocoon in there. That's unusual. Yeah, that's definitely some caterpillary webbing. Interestingly, nothing inside, so not sure what that was. Maybe it's hatched already, or maybe it got eaten. I don't know. But it's not in the peppers, so that's fine. But yes, once again, testing. We've got the California Wonder, the Ring of Fire, and at the back we've got a Havana Gold, which is very hard to pick out among its neighbours, but it's looking okay. All of these have really started to look much more healthy, and you can see the Ring of Fire in particular, loads of little new growth coming up, which is really what you want to see. So then what have we got here in the pots? Well, at the front we've got little 5 litre pots, and I think this is such a good size. It's really quite cute. I think it looks really good. Much easier to kind of grow and manage in a 5 litre pot, and this really suits Chinen's varieties, which this one is. You can see it's nice broad leaves there, and this is a Kangstar Lemon Starburst, which is something I've tried to grow successfully for a few years now. And this, I had 1 seed. I had 1 seed left in my seed packet, and it's survived, and it's looking really healthy, and this is meant to be an amazing pepper. So really glad that this chili has survived and is growing quite well. Next to that we've got a Primatali Red, so a stupidly hot pepper, disgustingly hot, terrifying, but gorgeous to look at, and looking really healthy. Behind that I might need to, let's do a bit more separation, shall we? This one, another one I've wanted to grow for a really long time, the Hainan Yellow Lantern. No fruit on here yet, but nice compact growth, looking really healthy. Maybe feels a little light, maybe wants to water. This one's just got one cane to keep it kind of in check. I am a little bit worried about whether or not 3 peppers in here is going to be too much, but this one, another real exciting one. This is the Chili Chump Jalapeno. So this is his own one, which he's been breeding, and he's got it to a fantastic size, and apparently it's much hotter than a standard jalapeno as well. So it's got an extra kick. It's looking pretty good. It's just got that one early pod on it from when it wasn't quite potted up early enough. There is another one here. That one's just a dinky one. So we're going to hopefully get that growing nice and tall and get some really big jalapenos, which are perfect for kind of stuffing and wrapping in bacon for jalapeno poppers. I've always struggled to grow jalapenos. That's the most successful looking one I've ever had, to be honest with you. And then in front of that, we've got another Chili Chump one. Look at that. Look at the shape on that. Absolutely divine. Another, the Chinen's plants. Oh, aren't they just gorgeous? Looking really good. And this is a Chili Chump jigsaw. So a first for me this year. Very, very interested to see how this comes. And we've got a little gradation in the pot size. So we've got 5s, 7.5. So these are the Chinens. Once again, I want to force them a little bit earlier. And then for the nice big pods with lots of quick growing peppers, we've got them in 10s. And this is another Goshu. This one was actually meant to go in the Autopot. That's one where I've had a label malfunction, but not the end of the world. On this side, we've not got the nice pot size changes, but some slightly dry peppers. This one is the Sugar Rush Long Peach, surely. This is where I've had my label malfunctions. A lot of my labels did actually rub off this year, and this one doesn't have a label, but Sugar Rush Long Peach, one of my all-time favorites, was meant to go in the Autopot as well. I thought I'd put this in the Autopot. Bit of a whoops, but I've got loads and loads of sauce that I've made from this because it's just so sweet. I grow it every year and just fantastic. I did have a few more spares that I traded. I kept a lot of plants back in 2.5 litre pots this year, and what I did, one of the fantastic things about allotments, a 2.5 litre well-established chili pepper is quite valuable to a lot of people, especially if you've started it really early, and it's far bigger than any of their seedlings. So I've been trading them with people for, you know, quite a few like massive cabbages, bags of onions, that kind of thing. So I can't grow much else on my allotment, but because I can grow chilies, I can trade them with people for produce. So it all works out in the end. But the Sugar Rush Long Peach, I would grow this every year, I think. If I could only grow 1 or 2 peppers, this would definitely be on the list. Top 5 for sure. It grows so quickly as well. They can catch you out a little bit. The pods take a long time to ripen. You see, that's where they can catch you out a little bit. But I find they grow so quick. They're happy in a 10 litre pot. They want space. They're hungry and they grow. And you will get loads and loads of peppers off one of these. I had one of these in the Autopot last year and whoa, just kilograms of peppers. Wonderful. Back next to that, we've got a 10 litre California Wonder. So you can see I've got lots and lots of California Wonders. We've got one in the quad grow, one in the Autopots, one in the chili grow, and one in a 10 litre pot as well for the testing. Looking really good. Some nice peppers forming on here. We have had a bit of rot on here, and I left this one specifically to show you. Hopefully you can tell this one's been off the plant for a little while. The rot has really set in, but we had some damage at the bottom here, and it could have been blossom end rot, or it could have been sun scorch. I think probably more likely to be sun scorch at this early stage in the season. But if you do see browning on the bottom of your, there's a little caterpillar on there. Let's get that out. If you do see kind of browning on the caterpillar, is really active. Look at that, it's really going for it. But yeah, do look out for that. It could be blossom end rot, which could be inconsistent watering, could be a lack of calcium, magnesium, unlikely, or it could be sun scorch, where you've got a pepper that is getting full sun on it. You're probably less likely to get that in a polytunnel actually compared to a greenhouse, but I've had 1 or 2 early in the season definitely getting sun scorch where you get it near the top or the sides of the peppers. Not too much you can do about it. I find as the season goes on, your plants get quite bushy and they tend to shade the peppers naturally. If you want to manually shade them, you can. You can get shade cloth in the UK, but you tend to find that it's not really necessary in our climate. Across the pond, much more common, especially in kind of southern states, where if you leave these outside, they will grow fantastically, but they might also just completely cook, so they need a little bit of shade. This one looking pretty good. Hainan Yellow Lantern, another one. 7.5 litre pot this time, so this one should get a little bit bigger. But the Hainan is meant to be a really good chili for sauce especially. And is this just the first ones coming right? Yes, I think it is. So similar, I think, to a yellow habanero, but I think there's meant to be something a little bit special about it. And I'm very, very intrigued to see how they taste, how they come together in a sauce, if there's any noticeable difference. And then we've got another bleeding jigsaw. So the one in the greenhouse that we saw at the start was just in a little 5 litre, and this, to compare, is in a 10 litre pot. And I think I had such a good start to the season, I probably could have got a lot of my chinense, a lot of my slower growing plants into 10 litre pots. But it's all a bit of a balancing act, isn't it, about kind of how many chili peppers you want if you just want to taste it for the first time, and how much space you've got as well, because obviously the bigger the pot, the bigger the chili pepper. Over here I've got another spare. That one is just kind of chilling in the middle of the pots normally, and another ring of fire in here. You can't really have too many ring of fire plants. It's such a just kind of easy to use, versatile pepper. Hopefully you'll agree, this is a fantastic season, especially given the challenges. I do quite often get a few viewers from across the pond in America who are like, JB, your pots are tiny, your plants are tiny. Very different climate in the UK, so I am very, very pleased, and I can't wait to see these go on throughout the season. I can't wait till we start getting the harvest and we can make some hot sauce, and I'm especially looking forward to those jalapenos as well. Thank you ever so much for joining me. Let me know how your chili season's going. An extra special thank you to all of my Chili Pepper Tier patrons who make these videos possible. Tony, Bill, Pam, Louise, Mel, Michael, Denise, Socks in the Garden, Andrew, Sarah, Dorcasaur, Louise, Angela, Andre and Brett. You are absolute stars. Hopefully I'll see you again next time.